Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. We were doing Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga. These are the contents of Gita summarized. Before that, let us pay our obeisances to Shri Shri Radha Govinda. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so we discussed section A, B, C, D. We finished 4 sections. We did Arjuna's further. He had a lot of doubts. Then he surrendered. And once he surrendered, Krishna gave him knowledge that you should fight. There is no death for the soul. I am the soul. I have a body. I am a soul, but I have a body. Then we spoke about Karma Kanda and how person's degradation takes place, right? Then we did Buddhi Yoga, that is Nishkam Karma. Krishna said, fight, but without any reaction. That means control your mind. Then today we are going to cover 2.54 to 2.72, which is Sthita Prajna. That is actually Brahman state. So we also did about the characteristics of soul. We'll just go through this very quickly. Ambika Mataji, you read last time? Or Manisha Mataji, who did last time? Please read once the characteristics of the soul.
Okay, Mataji, I read last time. I'll do it.
Yeah.
So the characteristics of soul, one, eternal, no change, indestructible, imperishable, immeasurable, neither slayer nor ever slain, no birth, no death, not come into being, does not come into being, will not come into being, unborn, ever existing, primeval, immutable, cannot be cut into pieces, burned by fire, moistened by water, withered by wind, unbreakable, insoluble, neither burned or dried, everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, eternally the same, invisible, inconceivable, amazing, which is look, see, hear, describe.
This is all about the, thank you so much, Mataji. Characteristics of the soul. We can imagine that how essential the food for soul is. From this, that soul is more important, but we are paying more attention to the body. That is the crux of the whole chapter 2 is telling that we have a body, but we are the soul. But we think the other way around. We think that we are the body and we have a soul. That's the best part of it. Okay, so section E, we will be covering 54 to 72. Sthita Prajna means, Sthita means what? Steady. And Prajna means wisdom. So Sthita Prajna refers to a person who has a steady wisdom. The one who has experienced the truth from within, from inside he has experienced the truth. So Bhagavad Gita in the shlokas 54 to 72 has described the characteristics of a person of a steady wisdom. This is a very, very important. All 18 shlokas are very, very important. It is Arjuna, here he desires to know. He wants to know, how does a perfect yogi conduct? We also get this curiosity. Yogi, they say, how do they conduct themselves? How do we know that he is Sthita Prajna, means he is having a person of steady knowledge? We also have this curiosity inside. So Arjuna also had this curiosity and he asked Krishna, please describe me the nature of these enlightened souls, How do they express themselves in this world? And what happens internally, what goes on inside them? And how do they deal with these external things happening in the world? Then Krishna answers this question. He says, they are always blissful, inside. And they are really enlightened one. They are not at all having any ego problems. They don't have any egocentric attachments also. They don't have any desires as such. So they are an absolute enjoyment state, And for them, these outside enjoyments and all, these are completely insignificant and they don't have any impact on them. Krishna says that, that those enlightened souls are like a river. They have entered into the ocean. So they're into that ocean, they're going with that flow. They have reached that supreme state. They're still not rivers. They have already entered the ocean. They are one with them, one with the ocean. So they have reached that supreme state. They have merged with eternity. They are completely free, liberated. They have attained, like, they are already in this material world and they are free. They don't need anything. They don't want anything. So the last 18 verses of this chapter, it's brilliant. It's really brilliant. And it is an explanation, description of self-realized soul. Perfect, I should say, personification of stress-free, complete man. If you want to know how a stress-free, complete man is like, these 18 verses will tell us. So these verses, these are like, these can be taken as used as a thesis also. If you're doing any thesis on stress management techniques, you can use these 18 verses and use them for stress management from, spiritual angle, of course, not from management angle, but spiritual angle, you can use this. That, you don't have to, you can always say that you don't have to use any antidepressant drugs. There will be no side effects if you use these 18 shlokas and as stress management techniques. So here he is going to describe the symptoms of enlightened soul, how he speaks, how he sits, how he walks, how he deals with the whole world. Very, very important 18 shlokas. Hare Krishna. Sthitadir Muni, let's start. 2.54, this is a characteristic of a person who has attained wisdom through samadhi. Arjuna uvacha sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava sthitidi kim prabhasheta imasita vrajeta kim. Anybody would like to read? Hare Krishna.
Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak and what is his language? How does he sit and how does he walk?
So this, he is having these curiosity, the designation like sthita prajna, one who is having steady intellect, and samadhistha. It is samadhisthasya keshava. He is situated in trance, complete trance. These words are applied for person of wisdom, person who is really enlightened. So he has heard these from Krishna about the state of this perfect yoga and samadhi. Now Arjuna is having this very much natural, right? So as if a rich man is walking by, you can make out by the way he's walking, the way he's talking, and the way he's carrying himself, the way the clothes that you come to know he's from some elite background. So the walking, talking, thinking. So we come to understand that yes, he's rich man. Same way, a man who is in transcendental conscious, complete. Krishna says he has specific symptoms. When you look at him, you can say, oh wow, he's an enlightened soul. So what is the immediate symptom of Krishna conscious man? He will speak only about Krishna. Anything matters related to Krishna. He will not get something else in his mind. All the time, those things are, going on in his mind. And these verses, they have extraordinary significance. Two reasons. One, they precisely tell us what wisdom means in our, practical day-to-day life, everyday life. And once we know what that wisdom or knowledge is, we can help ourselves to kind of uplift ourselves, spiritually, of course. And we will understand and then appreciate these verses. And then we can understand the content of these verses and we can uplift. For these reasons, as I said, 18 verses, best known. These are often recited verses in Bhagavad Gita. If you notice that, you will see that these are very often recited also. And let's try to understand these verses. We'll come to know the other symptoms in the coming verses. So he's asking, how does he walk? How does he talk? Please tell me, Krishna. So let's see what it says. So here's some of the symptoms of Sthita Prajna, How does he reveal his position? In 56 to 57, how does he speak? How does he react to actions of others? We want to know in our day-to-day life. Then how does he sit when senses are withdrawn? How is he situated? And then how does he engage his senses? So, like Srila Prabhupada had a motto. His motto was, preaching is the essence. Purity of heart is the force behind it. Books, of course, are the basis on which we preach. And the utility point of view, how is it useful in our day-to-day life, is the principle. So the main important point is how we can put all these shlokas in our day-to-day life and act and conduct ourselves, right? So let's see how he does. Shri Bhagavanuvacha prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmanyevatmana tushtaha sthita prajnastadochyate.
The blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness.
Yes. Prajahati. Prajahati means gives up. What? Yada. When he gives up what? Kaman. Kama means what? Sense gratification. He wants everything for himself, right? All the time. Sarvan, Parthan, Manogatan. Manogatan is mental concoction. So first line says, when he gives up the mental concoction and his sense gratification. So he started answering the question of what Arjuna asked here, right? And it will continue till the end of the chapter. Krishna will continuously explain. So this whole world is like Mriga Trishna. Mriga Trishna is like, mirage that we see in the desert also, right? As seen by the deer. That is why it's called Mriga. Mriga means deer and Trishna is like mirage. So the sun rays, when it is reflecting on the hot desert sand, the sun rays are reflecting, right? Then what does it create? It creates an illusion. Oh, there must be some water over there. For the deer, especially for the deer, when it looks like a mirage. Even though the water is not there because of the sun's reflection, it appears as if there is some water in the desert. And it starts thinking, oh, there is water ahead of it. And it starts running, running, running behind it to quench its thirst. But what is happening? The more it is moving towards the water, the more the mirage fades away, right? It is not there. How will it be there? But it has dull intellect. So it is not able to, recognize that it is just running after the illusion. The water is not there. The unfortunate deer, it is chasing that illusory water all the time and gets tired on the desert sand. Similarly, the material energy, Maya, is also creating so much of illusion for us. It is what kind of illusion it is creating? Happiness. Oh, there is so much of happiness. And what are we doing? We are running like a deer, running after it, trying, hoping to quench that, thirst of our senses. Our senses want some happiness. So we're running after it. We'll find here, we'll find there. We are running, 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 no matter how much we run. Oh, happiness keeps fading away, it will come, go away, go away, further away, away, away from us, In Puranas, it is stated, if it's a king, just a king, he wants to become the emperor. What is the difference between king and emperor? King is just like small. Emperor is the world's full emperor. So the king wants to be the emperor. Then, emperor is trying to think, oh, can I become a demigod? Then demigod is thinking, oh, can I become the Indra, the king of the heaven? And then Indra is thinking, I want to become Brahma, the secondary creator. The thirst for material entanglement and enjoyment never, never, ever going to satiate. It will never be complete. So when one learns to turn the mind away, we have to turn the mind away from these material temptations. Then what happens? We'll slowly, slowly, slowly renounce. We'll pull the desires from these senses. Then we will get this inner bliss. We understand, and then we come in touch with this inner bliss inside the soul, right? And then we become transcendently situated. That's what Krishna is telling. So he stated in the first verse, what did he say? Transcendently situated person is one who has given up selfish desire and the cravings of the senses. Atman eva atmana tushta, he's given up those desires and the cravings, and he's satisfied in the self, right? So what does it tell, this part of Gita? It is giving us the guidelines, how we should follow, what type of values we should, try to follow, what kind of mental attitude we should develop during the spiritual practice. Everybody wants to be on the spiritual path, but we have to develop these. We have to practice this. Then only it is going to happen. Otherwise, it won't. So if we want to realize the divinity in our own inside, then we need, Krishna is giving us this section. so that we understand what type of values we need to follow by telling us what are the symptoms. For example, Prahlad Maharaj, he was never ever, he was complete sthita prajna. He never had anything, no desire, nothing. He just had one focus, God. That's it. Srila Prabhupada continuously kept on working hard to give us what it is, Bhagavad Gita as it is that we are reading today. Let's see. Dukkeshvanoद्विग्नमनाः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीर्मुनिरुच्यते.
One who is not disturbed in mind even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady mind.
Sage of steady mind or sage of steady wisdom. What is it? Vita raga. Vita, attachment. Raga is for pleasure, attachment. We are having a lot of attachment. So Vita raga, bhaya, Vita bhaya is like remain free from fear. Vita krodha, devoid of anger. Sthita dhir muni ruchite. Sthita dhir means one who is having steady wisdom. What does he do? They give up craving for pleasure. Vita raga. They give up, remain free from fear. Vita bhaya. Then they are devoid of anger. Vita krodha. That one is sthita dhir muni, like Prahlad Maharaj, right? As I mentioned in the previous one. So he is a sthita dhir muni. And Krishna is mentioning this, that he is different from an ordinary muni. Because Sthita Dhir Muni is always in Krishna consciousness. He does not allow the mind, to harbor over these material weaknesses that we have. We have like lust, we have anger, we have greed. Sthita Dhir Muni will not entertain any of this. So if you have noticed, sometimes when we permit the mind, we have to allow the mind. If we don't allow the mind, it will not go. But we allow the mind to brood over miseries. The moment we start brooding about it, we get diverted from this divine thought. We get diverted from complete Krishna consciousness. Mind keeps dragging us and it is pulling us down from that transcendental level. We reach over here while reading Bhagavad Gita. Then suddenly somebody says something. Why did he say so? That mind starts brooding all the time. You see how this process of torture takes place. The more we present pain, the memories of the past pain, the fear or the apprehensions of what will happen in the future, that kind of pain, it will keep tormenting our mind like anything. It makes our mind very stormy. But when mind drops these two, forget about the past, forget about the future, I want to be in present, I want to focus on what I'm reading, Bhagavad Gita or the whatever scriptures, or I want to be introspect myself inside. Then mind starts to grope with the present sensation. You will suddenly you will realize that the pain that you have, surprisingly, it will shrink at least to manageable position, if not zero, within the limits at least. So the sage of steady wisdom, whoever is a muni, sthita dhir muni, he will not allow the mind to hanker for pleasure or for lamentation or for miseries. No, he will be sthita dhir muni, steady mind. That is something that we need to practice, says Krishna. Yes sarvatra nabhisneha tat prapya shubha shubham nabhinandati nadveshti tasya prajna pratisthita.
One who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he may obtain, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge.
Prajna, tasya prajna pratisthita. Prajna is perfect knowledge. He is having perfect knowledge. So ideas, in this expressed in previous verses also that we had read before, these are all repeated again and again. Why? Krishna knows we are mood buddhi. He has to keep hitting the nail on the head to make us understand. So he's completely, again, he's saying the same thing. That enlightened sage or the perfected one, he has got evenness of mind. He is not unaffected by good or evil. That's what Krishna is saying. He will not run after the pleasure, nor is he averse to any kind of pain, says Krishna. He will not have any attachment to worldly objects. He is not disturbed when he is being praised or when he is being criticized. He will still Sthitadir Muni, he says, Krishna. So he's always, he always identifies with the self. He goes inside. Mere detachment from life, and retirement to the jungle. That is not implied here. Krishna doesn't say just detach everybody, leave everyone. मुझे किसी के साथ नहीं रहना, मैं तो sannyas, I'm going to the forest. No, Krishna is not saying that. Such aimless detachment, it will not lead us anywhere. It will not lead us to higher level of existence. Even if we go to the jungle, this mind will keep going over there only. So that is called escapist view of life. We are not supposed to escape from this life. We have to live in this life, live in this material world and face it and become Sthitadhir Muni, says Krishna. So the detachment from the outside world should be coupled. It should be coupled with the capacity. We should bring up the capacity to face all the challenges in life. ठीक है Krishna, challenges दे रहे हो, I will face it. I will face it, come what may. Auspicious, inauspicious, whatever it is, with a balanced mind, Krishna, I will do it. I will do it. Keep telling yourself. Life, in its very nature, it's a mixture of good and bad. You will sometimes face good, sometimes bad, but the perfected one will experience both good and bad with equal detachment. He knows he is ever established inside. I am what I am here. If this is something outside, I will face it with equal detachment. So this kind of perfect man of wisdom, Sthitadir Muni, he will neither have aversion for happiness, sorrow, anything. He is not somebody will compliment you. Thank you. He's criticizing you. Okay, maybe I will improve. Fine. No reaction as such. So for him, everything is fine. He will look at the world from the plain glass, not colored glasses. Colored glass means apna thought mila ke bolna. No, we are not mixing our thoughts and trying to think what we are thinking. No, plain glass, whatever it is, it is. That's it. Flowers bloom, they wither away. Flowers bloom and they wither away. There is no need to praise the blooming thing. Withering away, no need to condemn it. ठीक है, उगा, गया, fine. So that kind we have to accept. Acceptance is very important. Acceptance comes, whatever comes, we must accept without excitement or pain or revolt or aversion. No. So this verse is in reply to Arjuna's query. He was asking, how about the speech of a Sthitadir Muni? How does he speak? So his speech mental state has been described. How is he? He's fixed in Krishna consciousness. He is not affected by good or evil. He is Sthitadir Muni. He's situated in Krishna consciousness all the time, right? Technically, it's called Samadhi. Samadhisthatva. Keshava. So Samadhi. Samadhi means firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. He is unaffected by duality. Happiness, sorrow, doesn't matter. That is called duality. Good, evil, right? Praising, good you say, okay, fine. Evil, he will not hate you, whatever. So one who remains unattached under all conditions, neither delighted by good fortune nor dejected by tribulations, he is a sage with perfect knowledge. So we should uh, not let our guards down in the event of success. कभी कभी success मिल जाता है, suddenly we forget everything about Krishna. We are celebrating, we are overjoyed. Srila Prabhupada says, don't let your guards down even at the event of success. Like, somebody is having a running competition in Olympics, okay, or Asian Games, let's say. The athletes are running. Suddenly there is first athlete who is coming to the finish line. He is far ahead of other athletes. He is trying to look back and say, oh, they're still coming. I'm going to win the race. He has not yet reached the finish line, but he thinks he has reached. And then he's already celebrating his success. And lo and behold, we see somebody running past him faster and touching the finish line. What happened? He let his guard down. He started celebrating very quickly only. Before he started celebrating his win even before he touched the finish line. And someone from behind took races past him. So what had happened? The athlete had started celebrating way too early and he lost his position. Similarly, we have to be always in Krishna consciousness, not let our guards down. Otherwise, what will happen? Maya will attack. And then the moment Maya attacks, we fall down. Jayadratha also celebrated like that in Mahabharata. Remember, he thought till the sun, Krishna covered the sun with his Sudarshana Chakra. I think you remember the story from level 1. And Jayadratha was guarded with personal soldiers and all. Arjuna could not penetrate that. But then, because Krishna covered the sun, Jayadratha thought, okay, sun is set, I can go. And he started celebrating the win very early, came to the battlefield to just look at Arjuna's emotions, how he's feeling. And because Arjuna was to go into the fire otherwise. So the moment he came in front of Arjuna, Krishna said, Arjuna, be ready. And tuck, he removed the Sudarshan Chakra and he said, shoot. So he also celebrated very quickly. We have to be focused in Krishna consciousness. As in material world, we will always have duality, happiness, sadness, right? Sthita prajna means he will be not affected by any duality. Yada samharate chayam kurmungani vasarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratisthita. One who is able to.
Yes, Mataji, I'm sorry. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects, as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell, is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness.
Yeah, I think you all know, right, about the tortoise, the distinction between the sense controlled by ordinary person and realized soul. This is analogy is being given with the example of a tortoise. So how can one detach oneself from this material world? Krishna is giving us, such a great, or you can say the best analogy possible, that example of a tortoise. Tortoise at any moment, it can wind up its senses as soon as it exhibits them against any time for a particular purpose. For example, it senses which danger aa raha hai. Immediately it will wind up inside. It will go. And the shell is so hard, it is impenetrable. Nothing can penetrate that, right? Whenever it encounters any danger, you can see it will protect itself by drawing its limbs and heads inside its shell. And once the danger passes away, the turtle again extracts its limbs and heads and continues its way. So the test of a yogi or a devotee, or you can say self-realized soul, is that he's able to control the senses according to his plan. He will make a plan. The moment he thinks that this outside world is not logical, it's nothing related to Krishna conscious, he'll withdraw his senses immediately. In media, you see advertisements, hundreds of channels you will see on TV. It is there to allure us, but we have to withdraw. Otherwise, if it is not useful in the path of Krishna consciousness, we don't need to hear that. So, but we think that object of senses is very good for us externally. But Krishna says, look for happiness within. Instead of inside, we look for happiness outside. How will we find? We will never be able to find. We'll always be miserable. Many are controlled by senses, right? All of us, so many of us are controlled by senses. But yogi has a plan. What kind of plan? He's ready to face the danger of these ads or these serials or these ads on, sometimes, there will be an ad on high-end phone. Then it brings desire in us. We should buy that, right? But we don't have the capacity to buy. Maybe we don't have that much money or whatever, right? So what happens when we don't have? It brings frustration. That iPhone I want, but I cannot buy it. It's leading to frustration. We get trapped in Maya. But yogis, no. They are away from all this. The moment they see all that, they will withdraw their senses inside. So that's the analogy Krishna has given. So Krishna says, similarly, the senses of Krishna consciousness persons, they are used for some particular purpose in the service of Krishna or the Lord. And then otherwise, if outside world they go, they withdraw their senses and they walk around. So nothing affects them, like a tortoise. Good idea, right? We can also withdraw our senses. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinah rasavarjam rasopasya param drishtva nivartate.
Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experience a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness.
Higher taste. So when we are transcendently situated higher, we will stay away from these sense enjoyments. We won't need this because we are having that higher taste, right? If there is some kind of small sugar cube or something, and then we taste honey we will find it higher, then we'll say this sugar hai. Honey is much better. So we need for higher taste. Once we tasted Krishna consciousness, this small material things, it doesn't bother us anymore. But if we forcefully want to stop sense enjoyment by laying down rules, regulations, then it will be like, we are restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. नहीं खा सकते हो, ये नहीं कर सकते हो, वो नहीं कर. Then what happens? It brings a lot of pain. Then definitely, it's not like it becomes very difficult. He will not like it. He will say, what is this? You're restricting me from everything. Then he will lose all the taste. Then he won't have enjoyment only. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like, Ashtanga yoga, you are working, you are putting your head inside the mud, going deep down into the earth, torturing your body, yama, niyama, asana. We did Ashtanga yoga, right, in chapter 6. Then pranayama, pratyahara, then dharana. All this, this is recommended, but for less intelligent persons who have, the knowledge is not really developed. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's advancing in Krishna consciousness, he doesn't have to taste for this small dead material things, says Krishna. You have to, the moment you're restricted from sense object remains, don't restrict it, go for higher taste, says Krishna. Then you will always be enjoyment, fully in blissful state. So sthita prajna, man is fixed in intelligence, pure transcendental consciousness, right? So you withdraw senses, object of senses will always be there, right? Senses are like venomous snakes. It is always going to be there. It should not be allowed to act loosely, independently. Otherwise, it will keep hitting you, right? So you are able to control your senses. The best way is to engage in Krishna's service. Follow the example of tortoise, right? Follow do's and don'ts of the scriptures, and then be in Krishna consciousness. Whenever there is something outside world, withdraw your senses. Krishna is explaining, right, difference between the outer abstention and inner renunciation. So we may reject the object, but the desire will remain. We'll say, no, that I will not taste. I will not take that because it's against this rules and regulations. But inside, the desire is not gone. And even the desire is lost. When is the desire lost? When Supreme is seen. The moment you see Krishna, then even if you want, the desire is not there. It's not outside only. Inside also, the desire for Krishna is so much that you don't desire something outside. The control should be both body level also and mind level also. If you have body level also and mind level also, then there is kind of liberation. Otherwise, we cannot be liberated. Then we are just running after something also that we cannot restrain our senses, right? The moment we pull it, how long can you keep controlling it? One day it will let loose. It's like a venomous snake, says Krishna. So the answer, the third question, how does he sit? Arjuna's question, right? So how does he restrain his senses and mentality? Krishna is answering, he says, he uses his senses only for Krishna's service. Because he has taken higher taste, then he is able to control his senses. What is the analogy is given? Tortoise and devotee. He says, he whenever there is something outside, some danger he sees, he withdraws his senses. And the snake charmer, he can control the snake, right? So when we are in Krishna consciousness, we are able to control our mind. Otherwise, it is very difficult. So he's talking about symptoms of sthita prajna. How does he sit? The embodied soul is there, restricted from sense enjoyment. Taste for sense object remains. So what do we have to do? Develop higher taste. Go towards God. Then, right? So how to develop higher taste? Fix it. Krishna consciousness. That's what Krishna says. Yatato yapi kaunteya purushasya vipashchitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manah.
The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Sense control is a means of God realization for a person of stable mind.
So how are the senses? You can see in the picture, it's like wild horses. They have been newly harnessed. We're pulling the senses. We are trying to pull, but they are so hasty. They are so impulsive. They're so the senses are so reckless. You know, it's the important battle that the sadhaks or the sadhanas or we who devotees who are have to fight within ourselves. The senses are really very impulsive. So Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently nice thing, it automatically the material enjoyment, it becomes distasteful. We don't enjoy it anymore. So it is like, as if a hungry man is satisfied, has satisfied his hunger by sufficient quantity of, he has had all nutritious eatables, he has had full. The once he's satisfied, very satisfied. Similarly, a Krishna conscious person who has seen that, tasted that higher, had a higher taste, he's satisfied. He's not running. Who is the best example here we can give is Ambarish Maharaj. He had conquered even a great yogi like Durvasa Muni simply because his mind was always engaged in Krishna consciousness, right? So we did this in level 1 about Ambarish Maharaj, how well he was, how good he was. Even Srimad Bhagavatam, if you read Canto 9, then you will see there was a sage called Saubhari. Saubhari sage, it's written in Rig Veda also, and there is a mantra called Saubhari Sutra, I think. So he was not an ordinary sage. He had attained such control over his body. He used to go, to Yamuna River, and he would submerge, go underwater and meditate underwater. He had so much of control. One day, you know what? He saw fish mating. The sight of that carried away his mind and senses. That's it. And desire for sexual association arose in him. So he left his spiritual practice there and then, came out of water and started thinking how to fulfill my desire. That time, king of Ayodhya was Mandhata. Mandhata was the name of the king. And he was a very nice, good ruler, noble ruler. So he had 50 daughters, very beautiful, each one more beautiful than the other. So Abhari approached the king and he said, I want to marry all your 50 daughters, or at least one of your daughters. So King Mandhata said, he's a sage, he's old. I can't even say many things to him. He's so old. How can I give my daughters to him? And he saw, but he knew he's so powerful sage. If he refused, what will happen? He might curse me. So I can't even do that. But I don't want to give. One of my daughter's life will be, at stake. It will be ruined. He was in dilemma. He didn't know what to do. Then he said, okay, Muni, I have no objection. But I will do one thing. Please take a seat. I'll bring all my daughters and we will be like, they will go around and whoever chooses you will become yours. And he was very confident, none of my daughters will choose such an old man. So in this way, he thought, okay, I will be saved from sage's curse. But he didn't know that. So Abhari was also, he was a great Muni. He knew what king was thinking. And what his intention was. He told the king, okay, fine. He said, I will return the next day, okay? You get them ready. Next day he came. How? He turned himself into a very charming, handsome youth. He had those powers, right? So what happened? He presented himself at the court Next day, so all 50 princesses, wow, he's so handsome. They wanted him to be his husband. So king didn't know anything. King didn't know what to do. Yeah, he had already given the promise. So he had to give all his daughters to him. So, but king said, how can he maintain all my 50 daughters? He's just one. They will start fighting with each other, these sisters. So what to do now? Swabhari Rishi immediately understood that also. And what did he do? He used his yogic powers again. So he put king's fear at rest. He said, okay, what I will do, I will take 50 forms, and then I will have 50 palaces for your my wives, 50 wives. And in all, he lived separately with each one of them, kept enjoying, and so many thousands of years passed away. And in Puranas that it is written that, Sobhari had so many children with each one of them. And until, there was a tiny city he created with all those children that he created. One day, Sobhari came to his senses and he said, Aho, Imam. He says, Pashyata means Vinashyata, means Vinashanam, everything Vinashanam. Aho, Imam. Pashyata me Vinashanam means what? He says in Bhagavata, oh humans, those of you who make plans to attain happiness through these whatever you have collected in this material world, be very careful. He says, Vinashanam. Look at my degradation, Vinashanam, my Vinash. You look at my Vinash, where I was and where I am now. I have created 50 bodies by my yogic powers. This is how I used my yogic powers. I've lived for so many years with these women for thousands of years. And yet this sense has not experienced fulfillment. It's going on and on and on, and hankering for more also. So he says, learn from my downfall and please do not come this side. That is why he said, Aho Imam Pashyatami Vinashanam. Look at me, that I have got totally destroyed. Don't follow my path. So this is how strong the senses are. That such a great Muni has fallen down. Who are we? Nothing. So you see symptoms, senses, they are very strong, forceful. They forcefully carry away the mind of man, trying to control them. Sage Durvasa was the great example. Vishwamitra, Menaka, right? Then mind should be engaged in Krishna's service. Sense gratification then becomes distasteful. So then mind can easily be controlled. You can't otherwise control the mind. It's not easy. So we have to learn from Maharaj Ambarish, Yamunacharya also. So he has, Krishna has emphasized, perfect master is the one who has complete control over his sense cravings. As I told in the previous the shloka that we were reading, senses are like turbulent horses. So if these horses have to be kept under control, what do we have to do? We have to be in Krishna consciousness. There is no point pulling. Nothing is going to happen. We will fall down again. So a man of discrimination, he will fall lalach aa jata hai. He falls prey to the temptations of this world. So whoever wants to aspire for spiritual life, he should not relax his effort. Thoda sa relaxation, when a snake comes in. So we have to be very, very careful. We have to have a disciplined way of life. Then only we will be able to seek what we are seeking. And what are we seeking? We are in the spiritual world. We want to go towards Krishna consciousness, right? Like how Menaka successfully incited Vishwamitra into Vishwamitra's lust and passion by her beauty. When he saw her beauty, right? His whole meditation was gone to zero. So then, Shakuntala was ultimately born to both of them, right? So we cannot, we have to be very clear that mind should be engaged in Krishna's service. Then what happens is our senses are completely, it becomes, the gratification becomes distasteful. We don't need anything much. Then mind can be controlled. Tani sarvani sanyamya yukta asita matparaha vashe hi yasendriyani Tasya prajna pratishtita.
One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence.
The very
The
thought of
very
sense
thought,
of, yeah. Yes, please.
the very thought of sense objects causes future misfortune.
Yeah. So mat para, yakta asita mat paraha. Mat para here means relationship with me. So how can one become mat paraha? Is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. You know, we learned in level 1. The sage, great sage Durvasa Muni, he picked a quarrel with Maharaja Ambarish, and Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of his pride and he could not check his senses. On the other hand, king, although he was not as powerful and a yogi like Durvasa Muni, but he was a devotee of Krishna. He was devotee of the Lord, and he tolerated. He tolerated all the sages' injustice, but ultimately he emerged victorious. Right? He was victorious. Senses can be controlled only by devotional service to Krishna. So sometimes, here the example is of fire is given, like blazing fire. It burns everything in the room. Whatever, the moment there is a fire, everything will be burnt to ashes. Similarly, the Lord Vishnu in Paramatma Swarup, who is situated in the heart of a devotee or a yogi, it burns up all kinds of impurities. Then you don't have any impurities, you become sthita prajna. Then you have no need to have any problem. He is able to restrain his senses. He is completely under control. Why? He is completely in Krishna consciousness. He will have steady sthita prajna. So the moment we think about sense objects, misfortune starts. So this is the symptoms again. The man of steady intelligence, he has restrained senses. He keeps them under full control by constantly engaging all the senses in the service of Krishna. What is Matpara? Matpara means fixed consciousness upon Krishna. That is Vishnu or Lord Vishnu or Paramatma in 400 Roop. He burns up all the impurities in our heart. If we are in Krishna consciousness, like fire burns everything into ashes in a room, similarly, all the impurities in our heart is gone the moment we are in Krishna consciousness. Dhyayato vishayan punsaha sangasteshu upajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bijayate.
While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises.
So this is a problem, anger, greed, lust. They are called manas rog, disease of the mind. These are, they can't, it keeps coming on often and on. So we are all aware, right, that these are the diseases of the body. Even a single body ailment, little bit, it will make our whole day miserable. Little headache, little finger ache or hand ache, whatever, elbow is aching, whatever is happening, stomach ache, the whole day is gone. It becomes miserable. We do not realize that we are being continuously tormented by these mental ailments continuously. And we do not even recognize that this is lust, this is anger, this is greed. And these mental diseases, we do not even think about it, that we have to cure them also. And in this verse and in next verse also, Krishna is telling, has given perfect, and he's giving, trying to penetrate, asking us to penetrate into this verse, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsa, how it makes the mind function. He's explaining that when we repeatedly keep thinking that there is some happiness in some object, mind is becoming attached to it. That's what Krishna is explaining to us. In a class, for example, there are a number of boys and girls, and they are very innocent, right, as such, in there. But one boy suddenly, he will one day notice something about one girl, and he starts thinking, I would be very happy if she were mine. And that he continuously keeps thinking that in his mind, repeats that thought in his mind. What happens? The mind becomes attached to her. Then he will tell his friend that he is madly in love with with that girl, and that he is not able to focus in his studies because his mind is repeatedly is going towards that side. Then his friends will tease him, ridicule him, that they all interact with her in the class, but no one is crazy about her. It's me kya rakha hai? What is so great about it? We are all talking to her. Why is he losing so much of sleep and losing his studies and ruining his studies just thinking about her? The fact is that he's that repeatedly that thought, that there is happiness in that girl. He's thinking that there will be very much of happiness the moment he will come in contact with a girl. So mind has become attached to it because he's thinking he'll find happiness there. Now what happened? The attachment seems quite harmless on its own. Okay, he's attracted there. But the problem is from attachment will come desire. Attachment is fine. From that, there is a desire also. Now, if one is attached to drinking something, drinking alcohol or drinking some drinks, the desire for the drinks comes repeatedly to the mind. The moment it's done, I want to drink more. The desire keeps on increasing, right? One is attached to cigarettes, then the thought of the pleasure of smoking cigarettes. Repeatedly, it keeps flowing in the mind, and it creates craving in them. In this way, what is happening? The attachment is leading to desire. The desire develops, it will give problem to, it is giving birth to two more problems that we have. What is that? Greed. We want more, 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 more. And if it's not happening, anger. So how does greed come? Greed comes from fulfillment of desire. The desire is fulfilled, you want more. मुझे मिल गया और चाहिए. And then knowing it to be the cause of misery also. So what does intelligent person do? He should renounce their desire. Nay, I don't want. Right? Flip side is what? When the fulfillment of desire is obstructed, you are not able to fulfill it. What will happen? You want it, but it's not happening. It will give rise to anger. So we have to bear in mind, right? Anger does not come on its own. It is created when the desire is stopped. You want something, it is not happening, anger comes. Otherwise, anger on its own will never come into your mind. So desire arises from attachment. Attachment comes from thinking about the sense object. Do you see the link? You see something, you get attached. The moment you get attached, you desire. The moment you desire and if desire is not getting fulfilled, you become frustrated and angry. So we see how these simple things, we are contemplating for simple pleasures of sense objects, how it leads towards this mental disease that we have towards greed and anger, right? So Krishna is continuing this chain further and further, and he will keep explaining what is the result of anger. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha, buddhinashat pranashyati.
From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool.
Brooding on the, you can read that. Brooding
Yes,
on
Mataji.
yeah.
Brooding on the objects of senses leads to attachment, and then desire, then to anger, then delusion, then loss of memory, and then loss of reason, and then utter ruin. Finally.
Anger, it always impairs judgment. The moment you're angry, the judgment doesn't work well, right? The morning mist, have you seen the morning mist? How it becomes like, it creates a hazy covering on the sunlight, the morning mist. Similarly, in anger, people will commit mistakes. They will often regret later because, intellect is clouded then by a haze of emotions. You have so many emotions running into your mind. You don't know what you're saying also. In anger, you will say it impairs your judgment. That is very, very important, People say, he's so old to me. He was such a great person. I don't know. He was my senior. I don't know why I spoke to him like that, in that manner. I don't know what has gone wrong into me and all that. What had happened? The faculty of judgment that here, it was affected by anger. That is why even sometimes we scold the elders also. We get angry because we are not, it is impairing our judgment. So when intellect is clouded with anger, it leads to bewilderment of memory. The memory doesn't work well. We forget that what we are doing and where we are, how we should behave. And then we forget to discriminate between right and wrong. And then we are just flowing into that surge of emotion that time. We don't even understand what we are doing that time. Then the downward descent, it continues. How? The bewilder of memory, what will happen? The intellect goes haywire. We don't know what is right, what is wrong. The intellect means what? It's like a GPS. It is the internal guide. It is telling us, go this way, go that way. That GPS is gone. Right? I call it GPS. It's going all the way. So when the GPS is gone, the intellect is gone, everything is ruined. Because we do not know the route. It is not telling which way to go because the intellect is also gone. GPS is not working correctly. So we are stranded. So in this manner, what happens? The path of descent from divinity, the divinity is up there. From path of divinity, from up there, it is going down, 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 down into the pot. Destruction of the intellect happens. So let's see the whole chart. Number one is object of the senses. Then first we see something which we like. So dhyayato vishayan punsaha, we look at some vishaya, means object of senses. Then we become attached to it. Sangasteshu pajayate, we get attached to it. Then what happens? It creates some kind of lust. Sangat sanjayate kamaha, that is lust. Kamat krodho vijayate, not getting it, anger. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha, creates delusion. Then what happens? Buddhinashat pranashyati. No, sammohat smriti vibhrama. Then bewildered of memory. Then it goes to loss of intelligence. Smriti bhramshat buddhinashat. Buddhi is gone, intellect is gone. And then buddhinashat pranashyati, and we fall. So we are completely in delusion. Everything goes. Like, this 8 steps is called 8 steps of failure. How is it? Let's give an example. There is a wedding anniversary coming up. Wife is getting ready, excited, thinking, oh, what surprise this time my husband is going to give me. And maybe he will take me to Switzerland. And then wife will start finding some information, where to go, where to have candle night dinner, what all I can find out about Switzerland. She starts Googling, and then she starts comparing with her friend who had gone to see maybe just Agra or some Taj Mahal or something. And she said, she just went to Taj Mahal. I will go to Switzerland. And then comparing is what, while she's comparing, lust is developing. Now, poor husband, he's busy. He's having so many meetings and all, he's forgotten completely about the wedding anniversary. So you can imagine what would have happened. Wife was full of anger completely. She was soaking up completely. So what happened? It created delusion. Means what? False belief. She's moving around the house, pretending to be busy. She doesn't want to talk to him. And it is creating bewilderment of memory. In anger, she doesn't even remember to cook. She doesn't want to cook. Her intelligence has gone out of the window. The intelligence has gone for a walk only, you can say. She's refusing to discriminate between what is right thought, what is wrong thought. Ultimately, what? She's falling on the bed and she's crying her heart out, crying miserably, and decides, I don't want to live with this man anymore. I'm going to my parents' house. She's thinking her life is just hell. How can my husband forget all this? Such a great anniversary, my 25th anniversary or whatever. So the lesson that we learn is that we have to be very careful. This damaging thoughts, the moment one thought enters our mind, you can see how damaging it is. And it gets converted into cruel plans. It will go, God knows where it goes completely. And it will end up in some action that you will regret forever. So we have to be very, very careful, and we have to be beware of damaging thoughts as it gets converted into cruel pangs and ends up in regrettable action. Ragadvesha vimuktaistu vishayanindriyaishcharan atmavashyar vidheyatma prasadamadi.
But a person, okay, there's a question also. So, how a person of stable mind moves among sense objects and what is his reward? Now, the translation. But a person free from all attachment and aversion and able to control his senses through regulative principles of freedom can obtain the complete mercy of the Lord.
Now, this verse here is answering Arjuna's question of how a man with steady wisdom moves about. He has to move around, right? How he does that? When the mind is trained in two aspects. What is that? One, he is living in self-control. Two, he is moving among the sense objects. He is going around with the sense objects with neither attachment. There is no attachment to the sense objects, nor he is hating the sense objects. It's not, if I'm using my laptop for Krishna consciousness, oh, why are you using all these, electronic things? Oh, you should not be, you should move away, you should become a sannyas and sit in one corner and not think or use anything. No, I'm enjoying laptop. I'm using it, Krishna consciousness. It's fine. You can keep using it. You don't have attachment, but you don't have hatred also for it. So the agitations caused by the charms of those objects, it's brought under control. Why? Because we are in Krishna consciousness. This condition of mind, which has, least, you can say sense disturbance. There will be sense disturbance, least. Because why? Because you don't worry about the sense objects anymore. So it is not going to disturb you anymore. What is that called? Peace of mind. So that is what Krishna told here. Atma Vaishyer Vidhe Atma Prasada Madhikachati. Prasada means tranquility, peace, peace of mind. So the urge for happiness is so much, it's very natural, right? It's natural, as thirst is there. Thirst is so natural to the physical body. So the happiness is also natural to the soul. So it is impossible to think that, I will not think about happiness anymore. I will not look for happiness anywhere. But that's unnatural, right? What is the solution to it? You want happiness, but you want to pull it. No, that's not going to happen because it is unnatural. Like thirst. Thirst is natural for the body. Similarly, happiness for the soul is natural. So simple solution is you have to look for happiness or vision happiness in proper direction. That is in God. The moment we do that, raga, attachment, and dvesha, aversion, both are the sides of the same coin. It will be gone. Raga, dvesha, vimuktaestu, it will be vimukt. We will be totally free. What is aversion? It is nothing but negative attachment. It is still attachment, right? Just as in attachment, the object of attachment, it repeatedly comes to one's mind, right? When we are having some attachment. Similarly, in aversion also, the object of hatred also keeps popping in our mind. If we hate something, that also keeps coming in the mind. If we like something, that also keeps coming in the mind. So it is negative attachment. So attachment and aversion to material objects both have the same effects on the mind. They will dirty the mind, pollute the mind, and they will pull it in, like, three modes of material nature, like pulling all the time. So when the mind is free from both attachment and aversion, and we are completely absorbed in devotion of God, thinking about God, talking about God, singing kirtans, reading Bhagavad Gita, then we receive the grace of the God. The moment we receive the grace of the God, He will only guide us. He will become our GPS, and we will experience the unlimited divine bliss within ourselves. We will ourselves experience. We don't have to run. We don't have to control anything. He will grace it, but we have to make an effort for that. So On experience then that higher taste, then mind is no longer attracted to these small sense objects. Even while we are using them also, we will still be, we won't be too happy, we won't be totally away from it. So we will be tasting, we will be touching, we will be smelling, we will be seeing, we will be hearing, like all of us. But sthita prajna means he is free from attachment and aversion. Raga dvesha vimukta isto, is free. So that is how sthita prajna will be there. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasya upajayate prasanna chetasa yashu buddhif paryavatishthate.
In that serenity, there is an end of all sorrow, for the intelligence of the man of serene mind soon becomes steady. For one thus satisfied in Krishna consciousness, the threefold miseries of material existence exist no longer. In such satisfied consciousness, one's intelligence is soon well established. Peace of mind alone leads to happiness.
True. Grace. This is all about God's grace. It's divine energy. The moment that grace is there, it will flood. Like it's like a flood. It will go into our personality. By grace, God, who is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, he will bestow, he will give the knowledge to us, he will give the divine love, he will give divine bliss to us, his grace. And by God's grace, when we'll experience the higher taste of divine bliss, these sensual happiness or everything, it will be gone, completely gone. We will become steadily situated in God. That is what Krishna is telling over here. Nasti buddhir yuktasya na cha yuktasya bhavana na cha bhavayata shantihi shantitasya kutas sukham.
One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. And how can there be any happiness without peace?
Simple. How can there be any happiness without peace? No God, no peace. And another spelling of God, no God, no peace. So, nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. There will be totally ashanti and shanti, right? So this verse here, it is strengthening the conclusion of the previous verse that we were reading. It is telling about the reverse, and it is kind of negating it also. Nasti buddhi yuktasya. So what does Lord Krishna say here? He says, no, you understand, no God, and then you will understand and know peace also. But in this verse, what did he say? He said, no God. Nahi hai God, so peace bhi nahi hai. If there is God, there is peace. If there is no God, there is no peace also. In this verse, he's saying, Nasti buddhi yuktasya. So person who does not learn to discipline his mind, then what happens? You have to discipline your mind and senses, right? But he doesn't do it. He can neither meditate upon God, nor he will experience the divine grace, nor he will get the divine bliss. Simple as that. Without that higher taste, it's impossible to renounce the lower taste. Once we get the higher taste, then we can leave this taste. अच्छी सी मिठाई टेस्ट करने के बाद you don't like that smaller mithai, you want that higher mithai only. But if you have not tasted that higher mithai, then you will not let go of this lower mithai thinking this is the best mithai in the world. So like, bee, we have shown the picture of a bee also here. It finds it impossible to renounce the nectar of a flower, right? This is a bee's story also. Bee is sitting on the lotus flower, drinking its nectar. Sun is setting, petals are beginning to shut down. Bee is so attached to enjoying the objects of its senses, the nectar, it's refusing to fly off. It is thinking, okay, there is still time for the flower to shut down. I can suck some more nectar while I can. Same way, we see that old age is coming towards us. We are going to die one day. Everybody is going to die. We can see the sign of death. We know it is sure to come. But like the bee, we are engrossed in enjoying material possessions, material enjoyment, material pleasures. We don't want to let go of it, knowing that death is sure. No doctor can also make us alive once we are dead. So here in the bee story again, in the meantime, this bee, it's dark now. Lotus flower closed. Now it has trapped the bee. It has thought, never mind, let me remain inside my beloved flower for tonight. Tomorrow morning, when the petals will open again, I will fly in. What happened? In the meantime, an elephant came and it broke the lotus from its stem and swallowed it. What had happened? Now the bee, along with that whole lotus flower, has gone into the stomach of the elephant. What was bee thinking? Oh, my beloved lotus is going somewhere. I am happily going along with the lotus. It died shortly thereafter. Right? So, what happened? We humans also, same story, same story. We are so engrossed in all these material sense gratification that we are not able to hear our Guru Maharaj's message. We are not able to understand what Guru is telling us. He is telling us, be engaged in devotion to God, be engaged in devotion to God. But he says, finally, it is time to board the flight. Flight when? You have to go towards death. That's the flight, final destination. So that is why Lord Krishna is telling over here, those who refuse, nasti buddhiruktasya, nachayuktasya bhavna, those who refuse to discipline the senses, buddhi, and they refuse to engage in devotion, they will continue to be, rocked up and down by these threefold misery of Maya. Then they will not be able to get out of it, says Krishna. So what is the true happiness? It is not the thirst for objects. You have to restrain your senses, and otherwise there will be completely misery all around. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayurnavamivambhasi. As a boat.
As a boat on the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. Why is the unsteady man incapable of knowledge?
Why is unsteady man incapable of knowledge? Because unless and until, all the senses are engaged in Krishna consciousness, even if one of them is in sense gratification, it will deviate the devotee from the higher transcendental advancement. As mentioned about Maharaj Ambrish, he had engaged all his senses in Krishna consciousness. That's the correct technique of controlling the mind, right? So we need to understand how deers are attached to sweet sounds. Hunter will attract them by starting a melodious music. Then deer will be attracted to the sound, comes near, and it is killed and gone. Right? Similarly, we also have to be very careful about the senses. Tasmadhyasya mahabhaho nigrahitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratisthita.
Therefore, O mighty armed, one whose senses are restrained from their objects is certainly of steady intelligence. Condition of the seeker who controlled his senses. Okay.
This is the condition of the seeker who has controlled his senses. On how we can curb the senses, we can curb the forces of these sense gratification only by Krishna consciousness. Or we have to engage all our senses towards transcendental loving service of the Lord. So how the enemies, how we control the enemies, how these enemies are curbed by the superior forces, we curb them, right? Similarly, the senses also can be curbed, but not by our effort, right? Human effort's not possible. Not by any human effort, only by keeping them engaged in Krishna consciousness. You try to control and see, it will 5 days, 6 days, 10 days, after that you see. So when you have understood this, that it's not possible by us, only by Krishna it is possible, and only in Krishna consciousness it is possible, then that person establishes himself in intelligence and he starts practicing under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, and that that devotee is called sadhaka, means he is practicing, because he is a suitable candidate for liberation. So what is his condition of a seeker? He's controlling his senses under the direction of a spiritual master. That's how he does it. So living entity is there in 67th shloka we read. One of the roaming senses is on which the mind focuses. It carries away the mind's intelligence, right? So in 68th shloka you have seen senses are restrained from objects of senses, but with the under the practice of bona fide spiritual master, we can control it, and that person is called sadhaka. Senses engaged in the service of Lord is when we are able to control our senses. Otherwise, it's not easy to control the senses. Ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti sanyami yasyam jagriti bhutani sa nisha pashyato mune.
What is night for all beings in the time of awakening for the self-controlled, and the time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage.
Yeah, we have to understand the true meaning of this. You know, those who are in the simple consciousness, they look to material enjoyment. They think that is the purpose of life. Material enjoyment is the purpose of life. That is the difference between the wise and the ignorant. They will consider, you know, whatever worldly pleasures are there. They think that is success of life. I have achieved this in life. That is success. No, they think that is the day. And if they have not got that material success, they think it is dark. For them, that is night. On the other hand, those who have become wise, they've got the divine knowledge, they will see sense enjoyment as harmful to them, to the soul also, right? Then they think that as night. The night that, see the difference between ignorant and the wise. Ignorant thinks getting all the material success is day, and not getting it is night. But the wise person thinks whatever material sense objects are there, that is harmful, that is like night. He wants to stay away. He wants to refrain from it, right? So from that, and refraining from it and elevating the soul, he thinks that that is day, the wise man. So Krishna is stating over here, what is night for the sage, that is day for the worldly minded people. That, and vice versa, of course. So ignorant people, what will they think? That they think that, you know, supreme reality, the divine consciousness is like night for them. And they see all confusion and darkness. But if the one who is completely in steady wisdom, is fully awake, he knows what is what, right? So this, you know, people very much confuse this verse. Actually, they interpret it the way they like. And there was this Baba, some Baba, I don't remember the name. He was a standing sadhu. He stood. He didn't sleep for 35 years. He stood there. He just stood. He would stand in his room and he would hang to a rope. I think a rope under his armpits. You know, he would put the rope under his arm. He was hanging like that. 35 years he didn't sleep, he says. Just to keep him in a standing position, he used the rope because he can't stand, physically difficult. So he was asked, what was his motivation? Why are you doing this kind of austerity, this kind of penance? So he quoted this verse of Bhagavad Gita. He said that what all beings see as night, the enlightened sage see as day. So to practice that, he has given up sleeping at night. See, what a, you know, waste of, what misunderstanding of this verse. He thinks that what people think is day is night for sages, so he is not sleeping only. That is not the meaning of this verse is. From all that standing, what had become of his feet and lower legs? They were all swollen. He could not practically do anything. That was very difficult for him. So what is the point of understanding it in a wrong way? We should not misunderstand the verse. Here it means very different, right? Material pleasures and non-material pleasures, that's it. So let's see. Living entity, there are two classes of intelligence. Material activities for sense gratification. Activities are based on material sense gratification. And the second one is introspective. You look inside for cultivation of self-realization. This is for our spiritual advancement. There are two types of intelligence. One material, one is spiritual. So activities are like day and night. We should not be disturbed by the demands of the senses. Apuryamanaamachalam pratishtham samudramapah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve sashanti mapnoti nakamakami.
A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. The question, if the world is dark to a seer, then how does he live in the world?
And it's so nice, right? There's a rhyming also, which is ever filled but is always still. The ocean is unique. It has a ability to remain undisturbed, still. It will always remain still, undisturbed state. It's being flooded, right? By so many rivers, non-stop rivers flow into it, but it is ever being filled, but is always still. Very, very nice analogy, this one. So all the rivers, they continuously flow non-stop, empty into the oceans. We know that. So we have read that in geography in schools as such. But does the ocean get overflowed, or does it going down or anything? Nothing like that. Ocean is there where it is, right? That is why Krishna has used Apuryamana machalam pratishtham, means filled from all sides. Apuryamana means it is filled from all sides. It is describing that the rivers are being poured into the ocean. And the rivers pouring all their water during rainy season into the ocean, it cannot make it flow over. So similarly, these sages are there, the Muni, Sitadhir Muni. These Munis, they always remain calm, they remain serene, they are not moved. Whatever condition might be there, they may have problems, they may face pleasure, whatever, they are still there, calm and serene. They are utilizing their sense objects because they have these bodily necessities. I have to use, right? Bodily necessities are there, so we have to use these sense objects, but does not mean that they're attached to it. So only sage can attain shanti or true peace who is away from this. Otherwise, it's not very difficult to get into all this. If a world is dark to a seer, how does he live in this world? By remaining unmoved in both conditions. While utilizing sense objects for bodily necessities, while being deprived of them, he remains sane. Sthitadhir Muni, that is how he lives in this world. Vihaya kaman yes sarvan umam sharati nispruha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashanti madhigacchati.
A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace.
So what is Krishna asking? He has listed out, Krishna has listed out the things, that disturb our peace of mind actually. And then he's asking Arjuna also, give them up, okay? So he's listed out the things. What all? He says, material desires. Vihaya kaman, give up. Kaman means what? Material desires for sense gratification. Vihaya means giving up. Ya means who? Sarvan, all. So he's telling, the moment we start harboring for desires, we are trapped. We are trapped with what? Greed and anger. Because we are wanting that desire. And when it's not happening, we end up getting angry. So anyway, either way, we are trapped. So he says that if we want inner peace, then what happens? It does not mean that we fulfill our desire, we'll get inner peace. No, that is not going to happen. We need to eliminate this, says Srila Prabhupada also says, and says Sri Krishna also. Next is greed. So greed for what? We want to advance. We want to move ahead. Ye bhi chahiye, wo bhi chahiye, ye bhi chahiye. We are always running after something or the other. That material advancement, it's a great waste of time, I tell you. right? Firstly, it is a great waste of time. Secondly, there is endless chase. There is never ending. You are running, running, running all the time. So, come to this developed countries, you will see over here, you have everything. Roti, kapda, or makan, everybody is having. Nobody is on the streets begging or anything. But still, they're still running for looking for, always look disturbed all the time. Their hankering is never ending. They're unsatisfied. So this, I what is the ultimate thing that we understand is, even if you possess wealth, even whatever wealth of contentment is the biggest treasure of life. However much money you may earn, that contentment is not there, you will never have that peace of mind. Next, Krishna says is nirmamo. Nirmama means without sense of proprietorship. Proprietorship means what? Ownership. हमने किया है. This is mine. This feeling of proprietorship is out of ignorance that we have, that because we know it all, everything belongs to Krishna. How are we the owners? We don't even take a penny with us when we die. After knowing that reality, also, we are still saying it's mine. Then comes nirahankara means without false ego. So ego means what? Most of the quarrels, they erupt between people because it stems from ego only. You go to corporate worlds, they have great executives have one giant egos. They are sitting with their giant egos, and you can see that majority of executives, if you see, they lose their jobs in that senior. I'm talking about senior management levels also. They, because of their ego, professional incompetence, because they are just, they can't handle that. Interpersonal issues are so much, so egos are so much, battle of ego is so much, they just don't want to entertain that, and they leave. So how to nurture the peace, how to go towards peace, what to do? Try to finish this pride, finish this ego, get rid of the ego. So in this verse, Arjuna's question was that how a man of steadfastness or steadfast mind, how does he walk? How does he conduct himself? So Krishna is telling, remove all this, give up all the desires, right? We have come empty-handed, we will go empty-handed. So what's the point? Then how can we even think of worldly things as ours, right? So Krishna is saying, give up everything, give up all your ego, be free from desires, and then you can have steadfastness. Esha Brahmi Sthitif Partha Nainam Prapya Vimuhyati Sthitva Syamanta Brahma Nirvanam Richati.
That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God.
That is called Brahmasthiti. Means you are in Brahman. You are in the state of God realization, because the soul is purified by that time, right? Because um, you are completely in Krishna consciousness. So if you are in Krishna consciousness, Krishna will bless you. He will grace you. As he mentioned in 2.64, what did he say? He said, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu Vishayanindriyaischaran, right? He said that. So he's saying, by his grace, he will grant divine love. The moment he will give love to the soul, in that state of Krishna realization or God realization, the moment we achieve that, the soul is free, liberated. It becomes Jivan Mukt completely. And we, even at the time of death, this liberated soul is already there, right? The soul is already liberated. It will discard the physical body, leave the physical body happily to the supreme abode of God, right? So this Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakura, the picture that you can see on the screen, he had summarized the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He said that this is like, the whole text summary of whole Bhagavad Gita kind of, because it is containing all about karma yoga, jnana yoga, and little bit of bhakti yoga also is discussed in this. So he says that this is like summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. That is why the second chapter, Sankhya Yoga, is very, very, very important. of all the chapters also, and the last 18 verses are often quoted also. Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Sankhya Yogo Nama Dvitiyo Dhyayah. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu Sarvam Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. So let's see the summary of this chapter. We learned in section A, Arjuna had doubt, he surrendered. Then Krishna said, I will give you the knowledge, you should fight, you should understand that there is no death for the soul. He spoke about the Karma Kanda. Then there was there was discussion about the Buddhi Yoga, Nishkam Karma. He said fight, but without any reaction. And then he talked about Sthita Prajna, a man with steady wisdom. How does he behave? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he conduct? Then for sustained happiness, I told about that 8 steps of failure, right? And then you have a sense of object, you get attached, the desire leads to frustration and anger, then delusion, and then from delusion, bewilderment of memory, and then loss of intelligence, and then you fall down. Then you have to move on for higher taste. The moment you get higher taste, you will not have, then you will have sustained happiness. How to manage crisis if you have any in life? If you are totally having a lot of problems in making a decision, you should surrender to God, go to a higher bona fide spiritual master, any person who is having more knowledge. Who am I? That is very important. In second chapter, we come to understand that I am soul and I have a body, not the other way around. What are the 2 duties? We have a duty to our gross and subtle body. Gross body, we have to take care of our body, which is made up of 5 elements, and we also have to take care of our soul. So in case you have a problem, you are searching for happiness, read Bhagavad Gita, feeling restless, read Bhagavad Gita. You want to seek the meaning of life, read Bhagavad Gita. You want to be a better person, read Bhagavad Gita. If you feel something is missing in life, read Bhagavad Gita. And if you are feeling lonely, read Bhagavad Gita. Vancha kalpatarupasya kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.